Our guy, Keith Sanchez, has dropped his pre-combine 2025 NFL mock draft. We're going to break it all down on today's episode. Guys, Mock Draft Monday is back.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an offensive draft analyst over with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He is the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. Guys, we have Keith's mock draft on today's show today. So first of all, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen and being our everydayers. We appreciate each and every one of you. Again, it is Mock Draft Monday. It is back. Keith dropped a new pre-combine mock draft. We're going to get into all of that, guys. How many QBs in round one? Mason Graham falls down the board, and then there's a run on trench players later on in this draft. But before that, guys, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Let's get into it. Keith, this is probably the most quarterbacks I've seen in the mock draft this entire mock draft season. And
DP, I went for it. I went for it all, DP. I told you I go against the grain. When everybody zigs, I zag, baby.
My guy.
So let's have some fun with this.
Let's pull up from 40 like Steph. Let's just drop
40.
these QBs in here.
When it happens in April, then I get to say I bought it here first, right?
Man,
bought it here to the lock.
This happens, Keith. You get to come on this show, but beat your chest. Let the people know. Listen, I was the first one out of everybody. But let's start it off, man. Talking about the quarterback landing spots. At number one, you have Cam Ward out of Miami to the Tennessee Titans. At pick 3, you have the New York Giants selected Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. At pick 6, you have Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama, going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Right after that, pick 7, the New York Jets select Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ohio State. Let's see, going down the list, you got at pick 21, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Will Howard, your guy out of Ohio State.
There we go.
I think that was all of them. Make sure I didn't miss any
more.
That
was all five.
That was all five, man. Talk to us. What went through your mind through your process to get 5 QBs in round one? Do you feel like this is a realistic possibility that teams – because remember the 2022 draft where everybody was like the Malik Willis, the Kenny Pickett's. We had multiple teams that had needs at quarterbacks. You know, I think Matt Corral, Sam Howell was in that draft. And the NFL for the first time ever showed restraint. They overdrafted Kenny Pickett, but they didn't draft anybody else in round one. They said, no, we wait till day 2. In this draft, outside of like Cam and Shedeur, everybody looks at, well, the most part, people look at the rest of this class as day 2 guys. What went through your mind when you was doing this mock to get 5 quarterbacks in round one?
Yeah, so there's 2 angles to this, right? And you say, okay, first off, I think that this is very realistic. And the first reason is that there's a high demand for quarterbacks, right? You talk about Tennessee, obviously need a quarterback. Cleveland, you talk about New York, you talk about, Jacksonville will find out this year, but you're talking about Las Vegas Raiders, talking about New York Jets, actually talking about the New Orleans Saints may need a quarterback, right? There are plenty of spots, we've talked about this and lamented this on this podcast. You're talking about maybe upwards of 5 months ago. We talked about how many teams need a quarterback. We talked about the New York Jets situation and potentially Quinn Ewers going there in the second round, right? We talked about that in September. So I want to say, first of all, I think this is a very realistic possibility. Secondly, is that everybody's going to say, okay, how does this happen? And you have to look at this draft in a vacuum in its own self. And what I'm saying is that if you're sitting at pick 6 or 7, right? When we're talking about true potential all-pro guys, right? It's probably only maybe 3 to 4, right? That you really feel like are all pro, right? Like you can compare them against the other draft classes of the last 5 years, and they match up with those guys too, right?
For sure. Yep.
So the reason that I say that is because if you are the Las Vegas Raiders, you are the New York Jets, right? And if it's like, I'm not drafting a potential all pro, I'm drafting a potential Pro Bowler or NFL starter, right? And the positional need has to add up also, then why not take a quarterback? if one of those needs is a quarterback, right? Like if the give and take is that I'm not getting an all-pro guy, I have a need at quarterback. This quarterback has potential, right? Why not take a quarterback in that situation if you're just going to take a flyer on another position? If you have a need at quarterback, why not take a flyer on a quarterback position? And that's how I view it, right? It's not like I think about in the past drafts when we talking about like the proven talent, right? Maybe the 2022 draft when it was Aiden Hutchinson and it was Chris Olave and it was Garrett Wilson and it was Jameson Williams and it was Kayvon Thibodeau and it was Trayvon Walker, right? Something like just how many at that point believed that they had so many blue chip prospects, not the same in this draft. So I look at it and I say, hey, if I need a quarterback, this might be the draft to take a quarterback because how many all pro guys I feel like are in this draft.
Yeah, I think, and I believe this and I live by this. If you're an NFL team and you have a guy at quarterback that you truly believe in, listen, I know, no matter how we grade him, like even if I don't have a first round grade on him, I didn't have a first round grade on Bo Nix, but when he was drafted to the Saints, I mean to the technically the Saints offense, with Sean Payton, when we was drafted to the Broncos with Sean Payton, we both came on this pod was like, well, this could work. Like this might be the right coach for him. If you believe, like if the Jets and Aaron Glenn and their OC, everybody in that building believes, hey, Jackson Dart is our guy at 7. Long as you have a plan for that kid, long as you know how to build around him, I have no qualms about it. I have no problem with you draft. Now the public's gonna look at it differently. Like, man, couldn't we went top defender or maybe another receiver, things like that. But if you really feel like this is my guy, go get him.
Yeah, with the New York Jets, the issue is this, that their quarterback situation, it impacts the rest of their team. It impacts. Yeah, it is. It's a dire situation, and it impacts the rest of their team. As far as their play level, right? Meaning that you thought that the New York Jets had a good defense until their quarterback wasn't good again, right? And then now you start to question their defense. And then the running game situation, right? Do the wide receivers want to be there? Like, I almost feel like you have to take a swing on a quarterback to get Garrett Wilson to believe again to, hey, do you want to hang on to Devontae Adams, right? Like, what does the defensive guys, do you get a Quentin Williams who pulls a Myles Garrett and say, I'm out of here, right? Like, you just don't know, right? And
Sauce Gardner, same thing.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner, same thing. And sometimes when things, when it happens fast, DP, right? Like there is no, when everybody wants out quickly. And so I think you have to try to put a stopgap in there or try to find some way to like build momentum again. And I'm not even saying this, and let's look. So this is a mock draft, right? So this other part of this is predicting what the NFL teams are going to do. I can very well see the New York Jets drafting Jackson Dart, right? This is the same franchise that drafted Zach Wilson.
Wilson.
That just went with their move, right? So if I'm predicting what NFL franchises may do, the New York Jets are one of the most combustible, just all over the place franchises in the NFL. So I can very well see this happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could, and that Zach Wilson point, like tying that together 100%. Like some Jets fan gonna look at this, Keith, and be like, and listen to the pod or read your mock on the Draft Network and be like, there's no way we do this. But I'm glad you brought up Zach Wilson. Like, well, you did it before. So I mean, don't assume we won't do it again.
Just got Aaron Rodgers, right? Like that. Like there's tons of things that people couldn't believe that the New York Jets could have done, and they've done it, right? They've surpassed 100%, Keith. Expectations. The one I wanted to get into too, the ideal going through these quarterback situations. The most ideal situation, and we picked this out last year, right? When we talked about the quarterback landing spots. The best one, I believe, for a young quarterback outside of the talent surrounding them, but the ancillary pieces to help out is the Las Vegas Raiders. You get Pete Carroll, a guy that's worked with Russell Wilson and Geno Smith, right? Who is a defensive guy that I now call him a QB whisperer because he turned Geno Smith's career completely around. But also, you have Tom Brady involved in partial ownership. So if I'm a young quarterback, I want to go to Las Vegas, right? I'm like, fine. I'm telling my agent, find me a way to get to Las Vegas because that seems like the situation that's closest to success. And I know that I have real football people who've had a lot of success right there by me, right? So I like that a lot. Go to that situation. But DP, I know there's some defensive guys that we want to talk about. So coming up next, we're going to talk about where does Mason Graham land, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a spicy one. Talk about that coming up next.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on said action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my Detroit Pistons for a late game comeback or picking Cade Cunningham to hit a late game clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Keith's 2025 pre-combine mock draft, guys. We have so I'm gonna go through 10 through 20. Didn't do that the first one. We just went through the quarterbacks. So at pick 10, you have the Chicago Bears selecting Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. We have Donovan Jackson. Love seeing him this high going to the San Francisco 49ers, interior offensive line out of Ohio State at pick 12?
Yeah.
Yes, yep. The Dallas Cowboys getting our guy, Mason Graham, out of Michigan, interior defensive line. The Miami Dolphins replaced Christian Wilkins with Walter Nolan at pick 13. Out of Ole Miss at pick 14, the Indianapolis Colts select our tight end one, Colston Loveland, out of Michigan. At pick 15, the Atlanta Falcons finally get an edge rusher out of guy right there in the backyard, Jalen Walker out of Georgia. The Arizona Cardinals go edge rusher as well with Michael Williams out of Georgia. Also, the Cincinnati Bengals select Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. The Seattle Seahawks select Tyler Booker, interior offensive lineman out of Alabama. Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall. At pick 20, the Denver Broncos select Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. And yeah, so we're going to stop it there, Keith. Let's go right up to pick 12. The Dallas Cowboys getting Mason Graham, interior defense. There's been a lot of conversation around Mason Graham, Keith, and I tweeted out this weekend. That's how you know we in draft season, baby. The overanalyzing, the hot takes, the prospect fatigue, as we like to say, Keith. Mason Graham entering the summer was deemed as like a blue chip, can't miss top 5 prospect. Now, for some reason, we realize maybe his arms aren't 34 inches long, and I don't know if I want him. And it's like, I seen tweets about, hey, Kenneth Grant is the better prospect out of the two. And I'm like, well, I couldn't tell by the way that the opposing offensive lines handled both of these guys. They left Kenneth Grant one-on-one, and they double-teamed Mason Graham. Keith, if he fell to 12 to Dallas, then listen, Jerry Jones, make sure you pay Micah Parsons. If this happens, you pay Micah Parsons. You need to go ahead and get that checkbook ready. Take some money out of your own bank account. Make sure that this man's paid, because that gives you one of the best defensive lines, like in terms of being able to get to the passer. I think you get Sam Williams, that kid out of I forget the
Ole Miss.
You get him back healthy. Yep. Probably bring back DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, you got Mozzie Smith. Like, yeah, you're gonna be able to do a little bit of everything on this defensive line. And honestly, with Sam Williams coming back, you might get play Micah Parsons back off ball on first and second downs. Keith, do you think there's a real possibility that Mason Graham falls here?
Yeah, I think so. And the reason is that if you look at the rest of the top, obviously what shifted a lot of this, right, was the quarterbacks going so early, like four in the top 7, I believe, right, that I had. And then you look at I think the key part too was you look at the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, right, those couple teams. And the thing is this, that I looked at the Carolina Panthers and I was like, okay, what should your focus be this offseason, right? And that's getting Bryce Young even more help, right? You want to keep the momentum going. He finished, I would say, strong for him, right? And you want to keep the momentum going, so get him another offensive weapon, right? And then you look at the New Orleans Saints. It's like, okay, you can definitely go Mason Graham here, but I know you drafted Brian Bresee a couple years ago. I think that Mason Graham is an elevated version of Brian Bresee. He is better, but getting Will Johnson, potentially a lockdown corner, and how much that impacts an entire team, I couldn't see them passing up the opportunity, especially with them letting go Marshawn Lattimore last year, right? And especially while they're trying to figure out this pass rush situation. You're talking about Cam Jordan. He gets I feel like he's doing the Saints a favor by continuing to come back while they try to figure out who's the next guy.
Because I'm pretty sure he's got a broadcast job or NFL analyst job on television, whether it's ESPN. He's got a job lined up somewhere. He's good on the mic.
100%. So I see the Dallas Cowboys as a great opportunity for the Cowboys, right, to address a positional need. But I think it's a good situation for Mason Graham. Like you said, you got Michael Parsons on the edge. He'll command double teams and different things like that while he's working the edge. Then you command the interior, right, able to make some things happen. And then also you come in here and you could be everything Cowboys fans needed and wanted, right? A big defensive lineman that can apply pressure from the interior position, that can stop the run, that can be versatile, that's high motor, right? That's proven. You can come in here and do a lot of different things. And I think him drawing attention will actually make Mozzie Smith a little bit better. And because I think what they're trying to ask out of Mozzie is not who Mozzie is. And so get him a running mate, right? That lets him play the position that play the role. Let me say that, play the role that he truly wants to play. DP, the one I want to talk about, Cincinnati Bengals, Matthew Golden.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, yeah.
This is package it up and send it for me, right? This is hit the send button. And some of this, obviously, we're talking about a mock draft and predictively. I think you look forward. There's no way they're letting Jamar Chase go, right?
No.
Jamar Chase is going to get paid. He's going to make his money, right? And so the question is, if you give Jamar 40, are you going to give T. Higgins 30? And then now you have 70 million tied in.
And you got to handle Trey Hendrickson.
And you still got to handle Trey Hendrickson, right? So are you going to have 70 million tied up, year over year, right, into two wide receivers? And so I think obviously they franchise tagged him, I believe, right? Yeah, and then, you go about trading him and you draft Matthew Golden. And I think that's a good trade off, right? To be like, hey, we're going to, get some picks back for T. Higgins, right? Whatever that may be, second, third, fourth. Maybe you could get a first if you can swing it. And then you draft Matthew Golden in the first round. And I think Matthew Golden is a really good complementary piece to Jamar Chase to the extent that I think it's some games where Matthew Golden can lead in receiving, right? Like he has that type of talent and ability, and stepping in with Joe Burrow, I think you're going to get a better version of Matthew Golden than what you got at Texas.
It's crazy when you mention the whole, because that's what I feel like that's where it's heading with T. Higgins, is that we tagged you to see if we could work out a team-friendly deal so we could still keep Jamar, still keep Trey. Like, what are you asking? Are you asking for wide receiver one money? Like,
that's what I was about to say. DP, what's team-friendly when your wide receiver one is making 40, right?
Yeah, that's
so what I'm saying is if T. Higgins is like, okay, cool, instead of asking for 30, I'm gonna ask for 27. That's still a lot.
That's still
a lot of money, right?
That's still a lot.
Yeah, it's just a tough situation.
It's crazy because over at Bleacher Report, my guy Mo Moten, he he's one of our writers and he also covers the Raiders. He did a article for some 7 trades that would shake up the offseason. One of the trades, and when I first saw it, I was like, Mo, are you serious? And I was like, okay, I could get it a little bit. Was the Cincinnati Bengals trading T. Higgins to the Jacksonville Jaguars for their first round pick. And I was like, T. Higgins played with Trevor Lawrence. They'll have the cap space. Yeah. You know what I mean? Then that relinquishes some of the responsibilities as carry the passing offense for Brian Thomas in year 2, where teams are going to try and bracket him, keep the deep ball away from him, things like that. And now you have Brian Thomas with a T. Higgins, and those two big body guys who can dominate the catch point, back shoulder fades, can make those 50-50 balls and turn them into 75-25 or whatever the case may be. I said I could see it, and I wouldn't be completely opposed to it because I think they also would get a pick back, maybe a third or something like that, and then they can try and go cornerback round 2 to add another corner or defensive lineman, whatever. But I do think that T. Higgins situation is trending into that spot. Keith, the spot that a pick that I like, and I never really thought about it. I kind of like Michael to the Cardinals. I feel like because then you get BJ Ojolari back, right? off of the torn ACL, so you work him in gradually. I do think they traded for Baron Browning, who was solid for them. I think they probably try to get him a 1 to 2 year deal, extend him to keep him in as another like explosive guy off the ball, stuff like that. And he could play off ball backer too to help them if they needed him to. But having Darius Robinson play that kind of 3-tech 4-eye and 4-man fronts, and now you get that versatility of a Michael, where Michael could rush off the edge opposite, like side by side with Darius. You know, he's playing the edge, Darius playing the interior defensive lineman, or certain pass situations, you got Baron Browning, you got BJ Ojolari on the outside, and then you got Michael and Darius. Two kind of, they look like defensive ends, but they have the strength and the arm length and everything else to just create havoc on the interior. And you think about being able to collapse the pocket with those 2'6". I think both of them are 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in there.
Yeah.
With the long arms. You're talking about quarterbacks trying to throw across the middle of the field. You got both of those guys collapsing, getting their hands up. Now you don't really have many viewpoints to accessing the middle of the field, and then you can just crash the edges with those two explosive edge rushes. I kind of like that fit for the Cardinals.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought about, because I thought about their head coach and obviously him being a defensive guy, right? Like when he was with Philly. And first of all, how did they emphasize the trenches at Philly, right? Drafting those guys. And then secondly, he's like the way that they want to play football and win games, it seems like they want to be able to be complimentary on the offensive side of the football and play good defense. That starts with the trenches. You need the trenches to be able to be there. So I could see him advocating for taking a guy like Michael Williams with so much upside and versatility. And at the very least, you know, you're getting an outstanding run defender. And then now you're just pushing the needle forward as far as the pass rushing ability, which if they put him in the right positions, I think there's a lot still to unlock from Michael Williams.
And Gannon has that experience from Philly where they took guys who weren't the most polished and they developed them.
Yep,
so it's like
100%.
certain situations, I do trust him to be able to get the most out of Michael.
I agree 100%. DP, there's about to be a run on trench players. You need the trenches addressed. Super Bowls, championships are won in the trenches. We're going to talk about where do those guys, interior offensive linemen, offensive tackles, interior defensive linemen, where do they fall? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. There was a run in Keith's pre-combine 2025 NFL mock draft on trench players. If you can't win the trenches, you can't win games, ladies and gentlemen. We saw that in the Super Bowl. Shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles. First trench player off the board, we got Nick Scourton, edge rusher from Texas A&M, going to the Green Bay Packers. The very next pick, at pick 24, the Minnesota Vikings select Kenneth Grant, interior defensive lineman out of Michigan. Down the board a little bit, we got the Detroit Lions selected Shamar Stewart, edge rusher from Texas A&M. The very next pick, we have the Washington Commanders selecting offensive tackle Ariante Ursery out of Minnesota. Then we have Josh Connolly, offensive tackle out of Oregon, who also goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Keith, let's talk about these two tackles, man, especially Ariante. It's crazy because he had a good week in the Senior Bowl. He came in with super long, good arm length and wingspan. He's physical, powerful, functional, solid athlete to be able to get out the blocks, get into his drops, things of that nature. You don't see him mentioned much as a potential late first-round pick, Keith. What went into your decision of putting him there with the Commanders?
Yeah, I think when you look at this entire tackle class, I think that for some reason Ariante Ursery's name is not buzzy or like the sexy pick. But when you look at just overall effectiveness, when you compare him to a Connerly, you compare him to a Calvin Banks, I think he's right there up there, right? If not, if you don't feel more comfortable, because he has better measurables, right? As far as just size and arm length and things like that. So I feel comfortable with taking him back into the first round, and I think that he is in that bucket of guys, right? Like I probably have Will Campbell and Josh Simmons in their own bucket, right? As far as me feeling a little bit better about those. And then after that, DP, I put all of those guys in the same bucket. Like I said, the Calvin Banks, the Ariante Urseries, the Josh Connolly's, the Marcus Mbos, the Armand Mimbos. I put all those guys in the same bucket. And I think Ariante Ursery definitely deserves a nod and be like, hey, you can draft a starting left tackle. Because I think the Commanders, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I seen in the playoff game, right? I think it was Brandon Coleman. I don't know if you remember him. He played kind of tackle guard at TCU. He kind of struggled a bit. I think he's more of a guard than a tackle. So they got to find a way to kick him down one slot and then find a true left tackle.
And you know what? And if you put Ariante at that left tackle spot, you kick Brandon Coleman down. That improves the interior protection for Jaden Daniels, but also improves their interior run blocking.
Yeah,
that was something that they need to. I mean, I don't think that, no disrespect to Brian. I think it's Brian Robinson, the running back. No disrespect to him. I don't think he's a good fit for this offense. Like he's not a good fit for the shotgun pistol inside zone type stuff. Like from a footwork, I don't. No, like he's gonna need those runaways. He's gonna be able to be a battering ram. He's almost short down the distance situations. Yeah, he's like 6 foot, 6'1", 225, 230. He should be able to do that with ease. But just to be able to break off big runs, and when you have a running threat like Jaden Daniels, you should have a little bit more room to work. And I just don't feel like he's a good fit. So improving that offensive line, then probably going to get yourself on day 2 another running back that would be a better fit. I think that's a good play. Josh Connolly to the Chiefs. I think this signals. Because what they had like Joe Tooney playing tackle, like, and he's a guard, you know what I mean, and everything like that. The whole Kingsley, the thing with Kansas City is that they have to make sure they don't fall into that Golden State Warrior situation. Because I remember when the Warriors drafted was Moody and Kuminga, and it was like, man, these some high draft, lottery picks. But this is a team that's trying to win a championship. They don't got time to develop you. Same thing with James Wiseman. Like, they did that to Kingsley. Like, instead of just letting Kingsley like work through the issues and you coach him through it, because you got Pat Mahomes, you say, you know what, we can't let you play. Like, we can't let you get our quarterback hit. And don't get me wrong, I get that. I understand that. Especially at the beginning of the season, Mahomes wasn't playing good football. He was turning the ball over left and right. The offense looked very disconjointed, especially after Rashee Rice went down. They got to figure out how to develop these guys by also still getting them on the field. Because if you can hit on Connolly, get Kingsley to playing good, effective football at right tackle potentially, you're good. And Mahomes can feel good, especially after what he just endured a couple Sundays ago, Keith, where he had no protection, man. So I think that's a good pick for him. They have to do better with getting these guys developed. I'm gonna tell you, Keith, I love the Vikings getting Kenneth Grant. I think that's a really good fit, especially in that division where Chicago's gonna want to run the ball. You got Ben Johnson over there with in Chicago with Caleb Williams. I think they're good. Listen, I'm telling you, Omari and Hampton. I think second round. That's my landing spot for him, right to Chicago.
I think that would be a home run pick if they could get him in the second round. I mean, we'll talk post combine.
I don't know if he's gonna be there though.
I don't think so. My prediction this is my long prediction, right? Post combine, Omari and Hampton will get first round buzz, and it's going to.
I think we're gonna get 2 RBs in round 1. It's gonna be weird to see where the landing spots are. But I think we get 2 RBs. But I think you got to stop that situation of whatever they run in Chicago. You know that Green Bay with Josh Jacobs can run the ball, and you know what you're dealing with Detroit. You got Sonic and Knuckles out there, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, that 2-headed monster. You got to stop, and Kenneth Grant's going to do a good job of helping that, and he flashes enough pass rush ability to still be a 3-down player. You help these teams out in the trenches, and the Green Bay Packers did exactly what the Green Bay Packers always do: take a guy that's unproven and wish for the best.
I know 100%. That's why I went with that too. That's just how they roll, right?
That's just Green Bay.
That's their recipe. Real quick, Jahad Campbell, linebacker, Philadelphia Eagles. One of the more not talked about prospects, but he's another guy in that bucket of those hybrid linebackers that actually are probably better edge rushers.
He should be getting first round buzz at this point. He should.
Yeah, then when people are giving him credit for it. And if you want to watch a game, watch that LSU game and what he could potentially be as an edge rusher. Like, I think that's when he really showcased with his upside.
Three down player, man. Three down player.
Three down player. And we know how valuable you think about the Anthony Barrs, right? Playing Sam linebacker and like those type of guys who have a lot of length, and you just put more weight on them, and this guy can walk around at 6'2", 6'3", 240 pounds, and be a true impact player. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at the talent code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube wherever you listen to the podcast to get the latest episode as soon as it is available, guys. As always, appreciate y'all for being our everydays. On tomorrow's show, we are getting into the defensive combine preview. What is the biggest defensive storyline? Who are the defensive prospects that have the most on the line, the most money to be made? We're going to talk about all that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.